reviewing the illustrations within the book of Genesis, chapters 1, 2, and 3, and especially that garden scene, it's not so easily understood the point that the author is getting at by giving us the illustration therein of that pair within the garden. The point is made. The point is made that there is a consistent narrative among what is called mankind, or to the Bible's mind, Priestkind, and the determination that they will pursue. Their determination, it's consistent. Their persuasion, it's repetitive. No matter what age, no matter what generation, that's really the type of character that mankind or Priestkind will possess. In doing so, what remains hidden is the tree that was left untouched, was the experience that was left unexperienced, the tree of life, the philosophy of life, as opposed to the concept or the philosophy of knowledge of good and evil. In the author writing this, they're letting us know what's wrong. They're letting us know what's wrong before we even have to do it. Usually we get correction from our own mistakes, or at least we're supposed to. They're doing us a favor here. They're doing us a favor by giving us the illustration of what will take place in every age, in every period of time. They're giving us the example of ecclesiastical repetition among the men or the priest kind, mankind, so that we can understand what not to do and what is absolutely more relevant. The author writing this, they are distinguishing classes of conversations. Classes of conversations. The first class, the class of the concept or the knowledge of good and evil. The second class, which should actually be the first, the class of the philosophy of life. Practically, we've been looking at this philosophically. Practically, what does that mean? What does it mean to possess the character of the priest kind? Which character is to be as gods? Which gods, to the Bible's mind, not to what we may assume or be familiar with as we may think, it's nothing but priests operating through the motive of religious law. On the other side of that is the philosophy, or the class of the philosophy of life. We've been looking at this philosophically, breaking these illustrations down, but the time for practicality, there's a time. And in a real sense, in a concrete real sense, what does it mean? What does it actually mean to choose the concept of knowledge of good and evil over the concept of the knowledge of life, of the counsel of life, of the wisdom of life? These are two different experiences. In one experience, the first, the concept of good and evil, whereby one may claim the title gods, you are left lording over. You are left lording over. On the other side, the concept of the knowledge or the wisdom or the counsel of life, you are become one with all. On the one hand, you're lording over. You are superior. You are controlling the conscience by a construct. On the other hand, you are one with all. And being one with all, there's a specific labor, a specific attitude, a specific benevolence, a specific employment that you have, not just for yourself. and not just for anything of the other side, but for all. The author of the book of Genesis is giving us philosophy of life, both personal and devotional, and what is based upon their experience most preferable. They're giving us philosophy of life, both personal and devotional, and based off of their experience, they are giving us what is most or more preferable. If we are seeing error committed by that pair, choosing the concept of good and evil, we are seeing the lifestyle that is not preferable. If we are seeing them forgetting the concept of the counsel, knowledge, and wisdom of life, we are seeing actually what should have been preferable. In a real sense, the author writing this, they're letting us know that instead of wanting to be elect, instead of wanting to be kind of man, instead of wanting to be priestkind, instead of wanting power over conscience and consciences by religious law, it is better and it is more preferable to be one with all. It is better and it is more preferable to be one with all. Is this a theme that the Bible highlights? Is this a theme that the Bible highlights? I've gone through and I've shown how the Bible does not appreciate the class called Priestkind. There is nothing positive in the Bible said about the class of Priestkind. One will find nothing positive said about them beginning in the scene in the garden. So is there another narrative? Does the Bible support what I'm saying? Does the Bible support what I'm saying? Does the Bible have a narrative, contrary to Priestkind, of one? Looking in the book of Micah, and there are other spots where we can find this, but looking in the book of Micah 5 and verse 7. Micah 5 and verse 7. The remnant of Jacob shall be in the midst of many people as a dew from the Lord, as the showers upon the grass that tarrieth not for man, nor waiteth for the sons of men. Why is it remnant? Why is it remnant? The narrative in the Bible is that calamity and destruction happens. The narrative in the Bible is that calamity and destruction happens because of priestkind. Because of the, or quote unquote, sons of men. Sons of men are priestkind. Sons of men are conceived from men. Men, priests. Priests are giving birth to priests, not literally or biologically. This is mentally, theologically. That's why it's sons of men. Because of the errors of the sons of men, the narrative of the Bible lets their audience know that a remnant will always be left over due to their mistakes. Babylon, sons of men commit ignorance and error. Destruction happens. Next kingdom, ignorance and error, destruction. Next kingdom, ignorance and error, destruction. Although they helped them rebuild, the two middle ones there that they were captives under. But then the fourth, under Rome, in captivity, because of the labors of the sons of men, destruction and perpetual. Hence, their religion never came back to what it was after 70 AD, temple religion gone. The sons of men, the narrative within the scriptures, are the reason for the calamities. Priestkind is the reason for the calamities. And what has to be left over, what will always be left over, is a remnant. Remnant from those calamities. And this remnant that is left over, they are always written of. They are always written of as being one with all, or as the scripture says, as being dew, as being like dew. What does it mean to be like dew? What does it mean to be one with all in the figurative illustration of dew? Hair care enthusiasts, are you ready to elevate your hair game without breaking the bank? If you are, this will be very interesting to you. Divi will give you an exclusive $10 off discount on all premium hair care products. But to claim this fantastic offer, all you have to do is visit their website at diviofficial.com/Linwood61174. Whether you're looking to nourish your locks, revitalize your scalp, or want a serum for hair growth that actually works, Divi has you covered. Visit diviofficial.com/Linwood61174 and unlock your $10 off discount now. Now the Bible says that the remnant of Jacob will be as dew upon the grass. Quickly, what is grass? Just so that we can get an idea of what this is saying. What is grass? Isaiah 40:7, because the language here is figurative. Isaiah 40:7, what is grass? The grass withereth, the flower fadeth, because the Spirit of the Lord bloweth upon it. Surely the people is grass. This is very plain. Breaking that down, grass is people. Grass is people. In figurative language, the remnant of Jacob will be as dew upon the grass. This is all language that is figurative and illustrative. Grass is people. The remnant of the ones that are left over and have learned from the mistakes of Priestkind. These will rest as dew upon the grass, or as dew upon the people. Now, we know grass is people now, but what is dew? What does dew figuratively represent? Looking in the book of Deuteronomy 32:2-3. Deuteronomy 32, verses 2 and 3. It reads, "My doctrine shall drop as the rain. My speech shall distill as the dew." I'm going to read that again. "My doctrine shall drop as the rain. My speech shall distill as the dew, as the small rain upon the tender herb, and as the showers upon the grass, because I will publish the name of the Lord." Now the class that the author of the book of Genesis, and especially through that garden scene, is wanting to establish is the class of the dew. They want to establish the class of the dew. This class of the dew is a class of the living God's name, or is a class of the living God's speech, or is a class of the mind at the center of the scriptures, laying forth doctrine, the doctrine at the core of the scriptures. The author of the book of Genesis, they are writing their narrative to inform their reader what is, quote unquote, gospel truth. What is, quote unquote, the good news. The good news is the breakdown and the revelation of class. The breakdown and the revelation of class. And the determination of what is not right class, and the determination of what is right class. What is not right class, what is not right class is the class of Priestkind, just to say plainly, because there is no other way to say this, now that the illustrations have been broken down. Priestkind, that's the error. Gospel is, don't go into that way. If you do, you will be neglecting the absolute center, core philosophy of the scriptures, which they neglected in the philosophy of the tree of life, illustration tree of life, and the wisdom therein. To that go. To that understand. To that philosophy is the philosophy that leaves the student or the subscriber of it as the dew upon the grass, or as the counsel, or as the wisdom, or as the philosophy upon the people. Not in the same way, because it may sound similar, but not in the same way as it is for priestkind to rest upon the conscience. There's no resting upon the conscience in this case. The dew sits. Think about dew. Think about natural dew. Natural dew sits. Natural dew sits, and then natural dew is absorbed. Natural dew sits, and natural dew is absorbed. And that absorption, it's either rolling off and falling into the ground for more absorption, or soaking in to whatever it is placed or set upon. That's the illustration of that class that is subscribing, or that is being trained by the tree or the philosophy of life. An example of this is found in the book of Judges. An example of dew and how it works, just to get that out there. In the book of Judges chapter 6, 36 to 38. Now, the character here, Gideon, is wanting to challenge his God to understand if it is right for him to go into war, if it is right for him to go into battle, and if he will conquer. To do so, he actually tests his God with a couple tests. Judges 6, 36 to 38. Gideon said unto God, if thou wilt save Israel by mine hand, as you have said, behold, I will put a fleece of wool in the floor, and if the dew be on the fleece only, and it be dry upon all the earth beside, then shall I know that thou wilt save Israel by mine hand, as thou hast said. And so it was. He rose early on the morrow, thrust the fleece together, and wringed the dew out of the fleece a bowl full of water. And after this point, he conducted another test on his God. Just showing the way that the dew sits here, as the dew sat in the fleece and was soaked in to the fleece. The individual conversation that is trained by the philosophy of life will do the same, or will have the same effect, on those that are around them, whether they be near or whether they be far. This is the contrasting experience. The contrasting experience, as opposed to subscribing to the concept or the philosophy of knowledge of good and evil, which imposes rule over conscience. The concept or the philosophy of life does not impose, but works for absorption. That means that there is either a will or a will to not accept what is being laid upon the individual mind and heart. There's no imposed forced will. The absorption is natural. The way that it rests will automatically lead to a soaking in. That's because the experience of the one philosophy of life differs from the other concept of good and evil. The idea of the philosophy of the tree of life is one that branches out to oneness. None is above the other. None is above the other because they have passed through, and when I'm saying none is above the other, no conversation and no conscience of the conversation is above another conversation or above another conscience of another conversation, because the initial conscience, the initial blessing conscience, has passed through an experience, of growth and of development, whereby its character is known not simply to itself, its devotional self, but to the being of its human. This experience has allowed the conversation to rationalize its existence and the means whereby its existence may be beneficial to those that are around it, whether it be near, whether that be near, or whether that be far. What has been engrafted into this conversation's conscience is the name of the living God, or the speech of the living God, or the doctrine of the mind at the core of the scriptures, or in other terms, do. This experience has given to them the praise of the living God, or the name of the living God, which is the quote-unquote gospel, or quote-unquote good tidings of the living God, which gospel and which good tidings are the personal identification of the character of the devotional conversation for personal and devotional growth and development. You will not get this type of experience when under Priestkind or within the sanctions of Priestkind as Priestkind. That experience is not for you. And the experience of the philosophy of life is an experience of pruning and purging the conversation, just as Gideon did. If they in the garden did what Gideon did, which is test God, which is, I should say, quote unquote, test God, which is examine the philosophy of the environment. If they had done that, they would have had a revelation. They would have understood the philosophy therein. They would have seen the vision for the scope of the narrative of their experience, to know the trend of what they should and should not have allowed into their experience.
Ever question your religious experience? Ever question the condition of your faith? Ever wonder if there was more to the Bible? Go beyond the surface, challenge your assumptions, and expand your mind with justification. Personally studying the Bible can develop critical thinking, improve communication between our thoughts and feelings, and enhance personal devotional ethical decision-making. If you do not know where to start, begin your journey here and now with Linwood. Philosophy is for all of us. Our faith needs philosophy inspired by the scriptures. Let justification expose your belief to the experience it should be having.
So what does this look like practically? What does the practical experience of the subscribers or the student to the tree or the philosophy or counsel, wisdom, or knowledge of life, quote unquote life, what does that look like? Looking in the book of Ephesians chapter 4 and verse 29. Ephesians chapter 4 and verse 29, it reads, "Let no corrupt communication proceed out of your mouth, but that which is good to the use of edifying, that it may minister grace unto the hearers." The point of justification, and it's really fascinating when you look at all the facets of what justification is. Yes, the conversation is to be justified, which means to be cleansed. To be cleansed, that means the conversation is in a state of wrong, of error. What is the conversation to be justified from? What is the conversation's natural wrong, natural error, natural sin? Illustration of the garden lets us know that the natural sin, the natural error of the conversation is conception and production of the character and of the experience of Priestkind. Every conversation is trapped within the blueprint of the religious world. Blueprint of the religious world is direction by Priestkind. The conversation's justification is from the error that the author is highlighting. The error that the author is highlighting, the mindset. Quit the mindset. Be clean from the mindset. Regenerate from that mindset of Priestkind of rule, whether it be personal rule or whether you are in Priestkind to rule by the conscience. Quit that. That's the wrong approach, according to the author writing this. That's the wrong approach. That is the error. That is the quote-unquote sin. to be justified from. The conversation is to be justified from that character and notion, from that motive and experience. Because every conversation, again, is created within that blueprint. To be justified from that means an escape into another experience. This other experience is the actual intended experience. The intended experience of quote-unquote life. Quote-unquote life leading to oneness. Oneness of conversation with conversation, which means the absorption of one's character, the absorption of one's experience to the contents of another conversation in light of and in reference to the name, the quote-unquote name at the core of the scriptures of the Bible, which name is actually a philosophical benevolence, which philosophical benevolence is an act of kindness. And this act of kindness being to or towards the individual devotional conversations, thoughts, feelings, actions, and behaviors, not for the conversation alone. Not for the conversation alone, not should it benefit the conversation itself, but the benefit is to go to others. The benefit is to go to others. That experience of justification is to lead to a cleanness of the conversation's conscience, for the purpose of that conscience then extending itself out to edify. To edify. And to edify due to the transforming experience of its character by the philosophy of quote-unquote life. Again, what does that look like? 1 Peter 5, 2 and 3. 1 Peter 5, 2 and 3. Feed the flock of God which is among you. Take the oversight thereof, not by constraint, but willingly. Not for filthy lucre, but of a ready mind. Neither as being lords over God's heritage, but being ensamples to the flock. Not lording over. The idea of knowledge of good and evil is an idea that leads to a philosophy where lording over is the only way that one's conversation can be perceived as pleasant to the eyes, fair to make one wise, and good for food. Concept of good and evil provides this. And this provision is actually very deceptive because it does not get to the root, of the individual. It's an embellishment, a very unhealthy embellishment of the pride within the human being a human-driven experience. Yet the author of the book of Genesis is breaking down classes of experience. You can have that class, but generationally, it has led to gross error, personal and devotional. Or you can turn your attention to what is and always will be generationally forgotten, which is an experience of oneness. Of oneness after passing through an experience of cleansing the devotional conversation to where now that conversation can rest as due, as a witness to an experience that is beneficial, not simply just for the devotional conversation, but also for the human being.